A very good morning, wherever you're watching us from. It's time for Press Review here on Luntha television, and for today you will be with me, Kingmate Kamendo, and my colleague
Atandi Wemzmara.
So join us as we will be going through some of the stories that are making headlines in our daily papers, talking about the Daily Times as well as the Nation. So you may start.
Okay, thank you very much. On the front page of the Daily Times is a headline here reading 120 billion Malawi kwacha needed for cholera and cyclone. The sub-headlines read UN steps up remedial actions, Dodma and NIF partner. And part of the story reads that the United Nations and other humanitarian partners in Malawi are calling for about 120 billion Malawi kwacha to support about 120 billion Malawi kwacha support to be used to assist community members affected by Tropical Cyclone Freddy and cholera outbreak.
Okay, and on the front page of the Nation newspaper, there is a story: 2 arrested for creating ghost evacuation camp. And the story says police have arrested 2 people for allegedly creating a bogus evacuation camp for a tropical cyclone Freddy survivors, where they received relief items at Mangwe in Cholo district. In an interview on Saturday, Limbe Police Station spokesperson Patrick Musa confirmed that the 2, alongside their colleagues whom he did not mention, collected 20 bags of maize flour and 100 packs of likuni para meant for the purported cyclone survivors.
That is very sad.
Very sad indeed. Creating problems like pretending as if they are helping, yet they are doing it for their own benefit.
It's sad that sometimes people use such situations for their own benefit. Because at this point, as a country already, we're saying that some of the support that is coming in is not really enough. So for people to actually create ghost camps, that is very, very sad. Okay, still on local news, the headline here is farmers threatened to sell tobacco abroad. And part of the story reads that some tobacco farmers in the country have threatened to sell their tobacco outside the country if the Tobacco Commission fails to revise upwards the proposed minimum prices for the 2023 season. This year's tobacco marketing season is expected to be opened in the second week of April.
Okay. Still on the front page, another story says land laws stir panic, and it has 2 captions. The first one: experts fear law may swat economy, while others sub-headline: estate owners Asian community feel targeted. And part of the story says fresh amendments to the land laws have stirred fear and anxiety, with some experts predicting doom for the economy. People should be prepared because the new provision have created uncertainty for investors over ownership. In line with President Lazarus Chakweda's directive of 2020, last year Parliament amended 6 land-related laws enacted in 2016 due to what the Tonks Alliance administration termed public discommitment.
Okay, do you have any more locals before we move on to international news?
Yes, let me take one, and this one says DPP members fight at regional meet. The story is being found on the second page. Partly the story says Elite Democratic Progressive Party DPP caused the chaos Saturday afternoon in Mzuzu as they forced out Director of Youth Kevin Chirambo and Director of Women Joyce Chikukura for allegedly swindling party resources. So yeah, I just wanted to take that one.
The drama in the DPP continues. Okay, now moving on to business news. The headline here reads CFSC fears for urban poor, and the subheadline reads advocates minimum wage hike. Now, part of the story reads that the Center for Social Concern, CFSC, has said elevated food prices are likely to crush the country's urban poor population. Last week, the government announced a hike in farm gate prices of Malawi's staple food, maize, from 220 kwacha per kg to 500 kwacha per kg, meaning that a 50 kilograms bag of maize will now be bought at a minimum price of 25,000 kwacha.
Okay. Weak kwacha prices push up import bill, and it has a caption: RBM data show import bill continues to increase. Part of the story says the combined effects of a weak kwacha and rising global prices have continued to increase the country's import bill, thereby worsening the trade balance. Reserve Bank of Malawi figures show. RBM figures contained in the latest monthly economic review report show that imports continue to rise and stood at $91.2 million. About 94.5 billion kwacha at the end of January this year, from 85.8 billion kwacha, which is 88.9 billion, should be 85.8 billion million US dollars, which is 88.9 billion kwacha, registered in December 2022.
Do you have any more business before we move to international?
We may move on.
Okay, I will take one here. Our headline reads, at least 26 dead as storms ravage parts of US. And part of the story reads that at least 26 people have been killed after a series of tornadoes tore through towns and cities in the south and midwest of the United States. Homes were destroyed and thousands were left without power after storms caused devastation across several states.
Okay, I will also take you through one international report, and this one says Mozambique faces waste cholera outbreak after Cyclone Freddy, and it has should be part of the sources. The World Health Organization has warned that over 1 million people face the possibility of contracting cholera, polio or COVID-19 in Mozambique after tropical cyclone Freddy displaced about 184,000 should be those are people. On Friday, French news agency AFP quoted Dr. Severine von Zerenda, WHO representative for the Southern African country, as having said.
Okay, moving on to arts and culture, I will take one. The headline here reads, Manganya returns to the stage, and the subheadline reads, new play premieres on Easter Monday. And part of the story reads that the Minister of Natural Resources and Climate Change, Michael Usi, popularly known as Manganya in the artistic loop, returns to the stage on Easter Monday to star in a play titled Mwanayo Ndiwanu at Bingu International Convention Center, BICC, in Ilongwe on Easter Monday. Although Usi has been active starring in some radio and television productions, he has not done any stage productions since he assumed the high office of minister. This should be interesting. I mean, personally, I really haven't seen him done any plays since he did assume this role of a minister. So, I mean, we've always known him, of course, as a great actor. He's good at what he does. So I think it's a good, because what I know also about this, they're trying to raise up some funds to help build houses for people who have been affected by the cyclone. So I think it's a good move, you know, trying to use his talent to actually help out the victims of Cyclone Freddy. Yeah,
it's a good move indeed, but also I think it just shows that he is what he is. Okay,
he cannot really change, because I know people have asked the question, say, is it that he has stopped because he's now a minister?
I don't think so. I think now he has proved that he still values his other part of life. Okay, and I will also take you through one as far as and culture stories is concerned in the Nation newspaper, and this one says artists join Clean Mood River campaign. Artists Hyphen, Rex Remoyo and Mighty Various on Saturday joined a 6 kilometer trail along the Mood River in Luntha to promote its cleanliness in the city. Organized by Art Malawi and several partners, the run started from Sunside Bridge across the biggest river in Luntha city to the Makata Bridge and back to the city center via the Kamuzu Highway.
All right. Okay, so moving on to the back page of our newspapers, that's with the local sports. A headline here reads, FAM casts Nate wider. Sub-headlines read, consults government on new coach. Analysts call for interim panel. Now, part of the story reads that Football Association of Malawi FAM President Walter Nyaminandu has said that they will consult widely before identifying Malawi national football team coach. FAM is on the market, hunting for a new coach after opting not to enter into negotiations with Flem's coach Marian Marinica to extend his contract, which expires on April 30th.
Okay, something similar to that. Pasua proposed for Flames law, and that's the headline in the should be on the very back page of the Nation newspaper. And the story said Farm Technical Subcommittee has recommended FCB Nyasa Big Place coach Kalisto Pasua as interim Flames coach to oversee the remaining 2023 African Cup of Nations AFCON qualifiers against Guinea and Ethiopia. The proposal follows an announcement by Football Association of Malawi Farm on Saturday that it will not renew the Romanian coach Mario Malinika's contract, and that he will proceed to leave for the remainder on leave for the remainder of his 1-year contract.
Okay. Do you have any more locals before we move on to international?
No, we may move on.
Okay. Headline here reads, this was on Football Club. He says Red's display was not acceptable. And part of the story reads, Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp said his side's capitulation in the 4-1 Premier League loss to Manchester City at Etihad Stadium was simply not acceptable. Last season, this was a tantalizing high-stakes fixture between two title rivals, but on Saturday, it proved to be a one-sided thumping with City's dominance highlighting the gulf between the sides.
Okay, and the reporter says he will take full responsibility of Chelsea's wounds, and the party that says Chelsea's manager says he takes full responsibility of the 2-0 loss to Aston Villa on Saturday. He said after a defeat, there is always a disappointment. Lucky enough, he is no longer there, so he doesn't have to feel responsible.
A lot of sacking actually
yes.
around.
Yeah, Leicester City have also sacked their manager Brendan Rodgers.
And Flames, of course.
Flames, of course. Mario Malinika will not be renewing. Of course, that one has not been sacked, but rather they have just made a decision
but
that.
in true sense, that is sacking.
I know, as if.
Because from what I know, I don't think he was supposed to stay this short. He was not supposed to stay in the team as a coach for this short time. Okay. He was to go on, but it's because of the performance. That's the whole issue. It's about performance of the coaches.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so that also brings us to the end of what we had for you in this edition of Press Review for today, Monday, the 3rd of April in the year 2023. Now, do remember that we do manage to only take you through some of the stories that appear in the newspapers. So if you do want to know more details to the stories we read, and some of which we did not, do make sure to get yourself the papers, with each going at the price of 1,000 kwacha. Just a reminder about the cholera outbreak. It's still amongst us, so let us continue strictly following adhering to the preventive measures and, of course, hygiene practices.
Otherwise, that's it from us here. I'm King Mitch Kamendo and my colleague
Tandy Williams-Amara.
Continue enjoying the rest of our programming here on Luntha Television, and this is a good morning.